Manager survey. The percentage of investors who see value outperforming jumped to 45% in March, the highest level since January of 2023. Where within value is the best place for investors to be? That's the big question, and we pose that question to our next guest, Michelle Schneider, marketgauge.com Chief Strategist. So Michelle, good to see you here this morning. Where is the best place to be in value right now?
Well, I think you have to divide value to hard assets versus companies that might actually be able to sustain whatever is coming to us, with its tariffs, interest rates not really necessarily going down, talk of recession, stagflation, and that's commodities. And I don't think there's enough discussion about it. But if you take a look around the board, besides what Jared just mentioned with all of the energy stocks, we're seeing corn, wheat, sugar, copper, even uranium and lithium starting to bottom out here. So I think people have to kind of change their mindset a little bit and kind of look at some of those hard assets in commodities, number one. And then as far as others, what we're really looking at in terms of equities, Brad, is how things that are emerging from bases are looking on a breakout, as opposed to what we've done for the last couple of years, which is buy every dip in the growth stocks. And I think that's where the broadening out of the market or the value play is what people are focused on.
And talk to me about being focused on value in this environment where we did see stocks moving to the upside for 2 days in a row. They're moving back to the downside today. Do investors still need to think defensively by looking at names in value, or are we going to see more buying leading us back to gains? Is this going to be a rebound that has legs in your view?
Well, right now, I think if you really want to look at one thing to give you that determination, it has to be the consumer sector. And so we like to look at XRT because it's a very good combination of staples and discretionary. XRT got beat up to a pulp most recently, had a nice move up with the rest of the market yesterday, but it hasn't really done anything to wow. In other words, it's so far from major moving averages. It had a major breakdown on weekly moving averages. And so if we can see that get legs, I actually think that's a better barometer than, say, NVIDIA. I mean, that could help, but I don't think growth is what this market is looking for at this point. They don't want to see it collapse. I think they need to see some confidence in the consumer area. Transportation would be another, and small caps. That represents the inside sectors of the U.S. economy, and people are looking to see if they actually can sustain and rally as a result of all of these administrative policies that have been set forth. Not, of course, DOGE being one and tariffs being another.
So I hear you saying consumer health is a better indicator of where the market is heading than the performance of NVIDIA. How does that play into the trade? I know one trade idea that you sent over to us is the vanity trade. Talk to me about what names might be beneficiaries of consumer health, even when they're being choiceful in the retail space.
Well, this is a great example of things that have really fallen apart, but might be basing out. So if we just look at the diet drugs themselves, the two companies, of course, Novo Nordisk and also Eli Lilly. Eli Lilly is doing better in terms of the technicals, but Novo Nordisk is another one not to ignore. It had sold off recently because it didn't do so well on a trial, but as much as people expected, but it has gotten some upgrades. So that would be, I think, the sort of the base of what you're looking at in terms of the vanity trade. As far as spreading out from there, we're looking at Ulta, we're looking at Elf, we're looking at Estee Lauder, we're looking even at Match.com. Anything that the consumer can switch to, okay, now I've lost weight, I have a way of keeping it off, and I'm starting to feel better about myself. AbbVie has been a big winner this year as well. So just think in terms of skin and beauty and health, and even athletic wear, and that's kind of what we're waiting for. But we're not rushing. Obviously, the overall macro right now is more of a concern, but these would be the places we would go if we think things are settling down.
Mish, I'm just trying to keep the weight on right now, honestly. I've got all the Create gummy ads all up in my feed right now at this juncture. But, one thing that you mentioned a moment ago was the U.S. consumer and specifically what we should be watching as the consumer is evaluating so many things, whether it be job prospects, whether it be the impact of tariffs as passed through to inflation. But one of the outside U.S. plays that you're looking at is actually in Vietnam. Why is that?
Well, Vietnam, first of all, they have made deals with the U.S. concerning tariffs where they're actually having better trade practices with the U.S. so that they will avoid tariffs. That's number one. Number two is China is actually doing a lot through Vietnam to avoid tariffs. And the country itself is a very highly industrious country. Their GDP is pretty strong. As we know, labor is cheap and they produce a lot. So that is an area. Now, again, here's a classic example of things that have crashed versus things that have based out and rallied. If you look at VNM as the ETF, which is the way to trade it, you can see that that based out, broke out, then now it's above all its moving averages, and it's doing a little bit of consolidation here over the 1250 level. I don't see any reason why that can't go higher, but I would say probably 1250 is what I'd like to see it hold around at this point.
Michelle, 45 seconds. What are you doing with the Mag 7?
Nothing. Really, I mean, I think that to me, they could go up, and certainly I'm watching NVIDIA carefully. Obviously, it had a nice bounce from the lows. But this to me is a representation of, I'm trying to put this delicately, of pointing people to, yes, AI is real, of course, and all the Mag 7, I mean, obviously Amazon, Apple, et cetera, are good companies with great balance sheets. But I also think that in terms of valuation, we don't really know valuation versus stock price and the overall sentiment. So we're staying out of it right now.
All right, Michelle, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
As